"You son of a gun, you. I'm punching you in the face. Aren't you going to quit?" And then I go, and the other guy's going, "No, you son of a gun, you. I'm going to keep punching you in the face until you quit." Who won? The audience won because they witnessed something that they will never, ever see again.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Tami Sharp, joined by my partner in all things, Chris Zamora. We have two new guests, well, one returning, and normally I say we have a special guest, and Matt, you are special, but we have a bona fide legend with us. We're beyond special on this one. We have the one and only Dan, the Beast Severn with us, so be like,
That's what I'm expecting.
awesome. So, Dan, we're going to let you talk. But before we do that, everybody should know Chris. He's been on a whole bunch. So, we're going to skip his intro. Matt, I'll have you do your intro again. And then, Dan, you can tell us all about how awesome you are.
Alrighty. How much time do I have?
Hold on. Awesome. Matt, take it
Uh,
away.
All right. So I'm a former police officer. I work patrol, peer support, SWAT, full-time police academy instructor, pushing for more fighting, shooting, training athletes, training cops like Division I athletes, nutrition, breath work, things like that. Also was a college strength coach at Yale and Georgetown. And then in my retirement, strength coach and sports psychology consultant for Velocity Sports in Redondo Beach, California, working with a lot of elite athletes, including other UFC guys, top round NFL draft picks, um, and also a police chaplain in LA for a bit in South Central and Torrance PD.
Awesome. Thank you. And this is going to be an awesome episode because you guys already have a lot of stuff in common. So, we're going to unpack it. But, Dan, will you please let the audience know a little bit about who you are?
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I have been an amateur wrestler, a professional wrestler, and a cage fighter. I say cage fighter because the very first known company to do this type of thing, and it's still probably the best known company today, is the Ultimate Fighting Championship, otherwise known as the UFC. But I've worked for almost every, I use the word MMA, mixed martial arts, but the precursor to mixed martial arts was called No Holds Barred. The product that everyone watches today, MMA, mixed martial arts, has roughly 47 or 49 rules to it today. There's weight classes, there's time periods, but back in the dark ages, the prehistoric ages, it was known as no holds barred, no weight classes, no time periods, and two rules. Those being no biting, no eye gouging. End of the rule. And even those rules were violated at times. And I think Big John McCarthy, the best known referee at the time, I think he had to slap a few of those fighters' hands and say, "Hey, no eye gouging, and give him his eyeball back. You can't keep it as a souvenir." I say that kiddingly, but there was one gentleman by the name of Paul Varlins who was eye gouged several times during the course of a match, who ended up losing his eyesight later because of the damage that he took. But at that time, you had to sign a piece of paper that stated in black and white, in the event of your accidental death. Now, The only two things your opponent can't do is bite you or eye gouge you. There's a whole lot of other ways you can take someone out without ever violating those two little rules. And I signed that piece of paper, and my guarantee for my carcass was $1,000 to walk into a cage.
Yeah.
So there's my little fairy tale story. If I could have sung or danced, I would have been doing something else, but I can't.
That's amazing. And you are, I mean, you are still you're in such good shape. We've gotten to meet you in person and you are, I would not fight you still to this day. You can kick some major ass.
I fall age-wise, I fall into the category. I'm a senior citizen. I'm 67, yeah, 67 years of age. Yeah, in June, I hit 68. This kind of going, no one's going to get out of the game of life alive, but I do invest time and energy into hopefully give myself the best quality of life. Each year, I receive my high school graduation newsletter, which basically over time has become a more and more of the obituary column. That's all because the herd continues to thin out. But as I said, you're you kind of know what your history is simply all you got to do is look at your mother and father. How long did they live to? What kind of health issues did they have later in life? Because you were given their genes. And so your history is there, but I'm still also a big believer you can change your destiny just by what you eat. So nutrition is a big factor. How you maintain your health and well-being. And there's a lot of it like who you surround yourself with that will take a toll on you as well.
As well as mindset too. You have such a strong mind and just you keep going. So for our audience with the law enforcement, you also just for the audience to know, like you're a huge supporter of law enforcement. You do training for them across the country. So thank you for that. A lot of them are struggling right now. It's hard with social media, with the headlines, with just the in addition to the pressure that they're already under with the job at hand, you have all of these added political things and all of this stuff. So let's address the mind before we even get to the body and the physical. Because if your mind's not right, everything else is going to not work as optimally as it could. So, what do you do to keep your mind sharp?
Well, I talk to myself a lot. And I answer myself as well. Because there are times when I'm in there, I'm shaving, and there are times when I will be driving down the road, and someone might actually pull up to a light or something like that, and they might look over and go, "This guy's cheese has slipped off the cracker." Because there are times when I simply look at I'm simply just venting. I could go to the bar and drink, or I could go smack the heavy bag around there or something like that. And, but somehow there's that release. Well, at the time, I'm just driving from point A to point B, so it's I talk to myself, I answer myself, and then sometimes I just go off onto a little bit of a rant. And it's just like it's kind of like I'm performing my own exorcism that helps to get the demons out of me. Because too many people tend to bottle things up inside of them. They don't. Again, especially men. Men don't talk to each other the same way that women talk to each other.
Yup.
So,
Well, and you're right, Dan. I mean, so Tammy and I, we're both clinical hypnotherapists, so we deal a lot with the subconscious. The subconscious knows everything about us. It knows why we have fear, why we have our phobias, why we have self-doubt, right? The subconscious knows. So when we're having conversation in our head with ourselves, we're actually talking to our subconscious. And you're right, Dan, that actually helps because you got all the answers. Sometimes you're like, I don't know if I should do this. But then that little voice in your head says, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't because you're probably gonna get in trouble, right?"
Even if
But
you
we do it
start to
anyway.
question, yeah, the moment that you even start to question it, you simply kind of know you're going into that deep water. Maybe I really shouldn't be. Yeah, if you question it at all.
And then you don't want to hear the answer, so you probably call Don Fry. And you're like, "Hey, Don, let me ask you a question."
No, before you're wrong, he'll be one of the last people because he's as I always say about like Don Fry, yeah, again for any of you viewing all this that has never who doesn't know the name Don Fry, just Google Don Fry or simply Google MMA fight match. Actually, even though it took place in Pride, the number one most viewed combat match history is Don Fry versus Takayama. The opening 45 seconds will simply just blow you away. How they're not in a cage; they're in Pride. Used a what looked like a normal boxing ring, yeah, just a little bit bigger. But then again, it was still bare knuckled. And when the referee said to commence the match at fight, as once they got within arm's reach of each other, they started throwing punches. And then as they're throwing punches, one guy reached out and did what's known as a collar tie, where he just basically reaches and cups the back of your head like a collar tie. They both actually have collar ties on each other, and they're punching each other in the face simultaneously. It was like a test of wills. Like, you son of a gun, you. I'm punching you in the face. Aren't you going to quit? And then I go, and the other guy's going, "No, you son of a gun, you. I'm going to keep punching you in the face until you quit." Who won? The audience won because they witnessed something that they will never, ever see again. I didn't see that match live that night. It was like not until like maybe a week or so later, that I was able to view it. And I said, Don was one of my wrestlers at Arizona State. He lived with a couple of my younger brothers, so I knew Don much like a younger sibling. So when I would go over and visit my brothers, I knew they're starving. It's like going and the Severns, we tend to go to these fancy restaurants known as buffets. Because for one low price, we will walk away and get our money's worth there. And it's like going, okay, I'm like, here's my brother Rod, there's my brother Mike. I go, okay, come on, Don, I can't leave a stray behind. Come on over. I go, but don't you shame me. I said, you better go up to that buffet line there at least 4 or 5 times there to make sure we're getting our money's worth. So again, that's where I've known Don for being one of his coaches that, and even I would say that I've only ever introduced 2 people to the Ultimate Fighting Championships. Don Fry was one of them, and Rashad Evans was the other one. And when I was coaching at Michigan State, and both athletes are in the UFC Hall of Fame. So like, I think I have a kind of a good eye for
Yeah.
talent.
You did pretty good there. You
Yeah.
guys have more stuff? I know Matt, you've been quiet. You want to jump in?
No, that's good. I mean, we could go down rabbit holes of depth psychology around talking to yourself, and also there's Harvard studies on relationships is the number one important factor for longevity, which he brought up. And also very much James Hollis is one of my favorite Jungian authors. When he talks to women, they can't believe that men don't have real friendships and share their shit. So they bottle it up, and that's a big problem. But if you explain to women what it's like to be a man, they're shocked. Wait, don't tell anybody anything about your emotions. Don't share any of your pain, any of your confusion about life. And yeah, not healthy. So he said a bunch of things that we could go down rabbit holes of how healthy it is.
Those are things that sometimes as I'm just driving down the road, I was look up at the rear mirror and say, "So how was your day there, Dan?" Well, wow, let me tell you about my day here right now. I had to deal with these. I'll keep it on the PG rating. And sometimes I have to use a little bit more colorful language because that little rascal or stuff like that isn't quite the dynamic type of verb, adverb, noun, pronoun that I'm looking for.
Well, you know what? I want to jump in on this for the audience and for anybody in a decision-making position because we have heard of officers getting in trouble because now they have body cams, right? And if your camera is rolling while you're in between calls, you're not dealing with the public, you're driving, you're doing something, and you're venting, you're talking to yourself and you're letting all of that energy out and it gets picked up on the recording. We got officers across the country getting in trouble for that. Like, why are you using the F-bomb? Why are you saying all this stuff? You sound unhinged. Are you fit for duty? And so we need to kind of address that because we all need to talk. Road rage is a thing. We need to talk to ourselves. We need to vent that shit out. And so I think the departments need to look at that a little bit, take a step back. Are they showing up and are they acting like that in the public? That's a problem. If they're acting like that in the patrol car when there's nobody else around, that's actually healthy.
Yeah, we
Well,
actually
I
we
mean,
actually Oh,
oh,
go ahead, Dan.
no, what I'm gonna jump on that is that even though society has advanced technologically speaking, we have regressed in knowing how to really communicate with each other. We are becoming more and more isolated. Even though I'm on a laptop right now, I have the world at my fingertips, but I'm not really. Yeah, I can be Googling whatever I want. I am interacting with people here right now. We're talking about an intellectual type of a subject and that, and how each of us deal with it. Other people are going to deal with things with differently. E- And I'm gonna go off in a couple of different little tangents here now. I have an MMA gym back in Coldwater, Michigan. I had it for a number of years. It wasn't just an MMA gym; it was an amateur. I first opened up. I bought the property because of my love for amateur wrestling, and I wanted to have my own personal private training facility just so that I could teach young kids to be champions in the sport of wrestling. And so that was the first thing, but then I got involved in a wacky world of professional wrestling, and so I added a professional wrestling, and I started teaching that because it's a very skittywampus type of an industry there as well that doesn't follow any kind of rules of education. And then, when I got involved into mixed martial arts, or I should say NHB, no holds barred, two mixed martial arts, I started teaching that. But then you start to get to know you're dealing with my clientele was probably 99% all males. You might get a token female here or there, but it was all males. And so now I'm dealing with these males, and you'd be shocked what I have to be telling them what to do at times because they don't have a male role figure in their lives. And I even have to even when my kids' class, and I'm running a kids' little amateur wrestling class because once school is out, which is usually around that 2:30, 3 o'clock a time frame. Okay, my first class is usually starts about 45 minutes later. So mom and dad could pick up, bring on over. They're gonna be with me for the next 1 hour, and then they're gone again. But I have to let them know that, as they go and they go, the drinking fountain's here. When you drink, make sure you drink there, but then try to wipe your face before you just start to drool like some old dog that got water dropped on a dog. And again, walk into the boys to the bathroom and to simply say, hey, you might want to stand a little bit closer to the toilet or something like that to utilize this. I can go with all kinds of comical little stories there because I have 5 children. And all 5 of my children they first had to work for me. They all wanted to get an allowance, and then they go, even when my oldest son said, he goes, "Dad, when" he came home one day, he goes, "When will I start receiving an allowance?" I go, "Well, son, tell me what an allowance is." He goes, "Well, some of my friends, they get paid because they make their bed or they pick up their clothes and, bring them down." I go, "Well, son, first off, you live in my house. It's one of the privileges of living in my house. You must make your bed. And if you want your clothes cleaned, you better bring them downstairs and go to laundry and to the laundry basket. You're not going to be running the washer and dryer because you're too young and stuff like that. You will learn those skills later because at some point, you will be departing the household, and we hopefully will have your mother and I will have taught you some survival skills on how to do some of the most basic necessities of life. But you'd be shocked as to how many young people don't know the most basic necessities of life because mom and dad didn't do their job. Now I go, now if you want to do something over above that, if you want to do some raking of leaves and picking up of limbs and all, I go, then we can negotiate what is known as an allowance.
Those are very, very good points, right? With kids and getting them to you're teaching them responsibility early, right? Because and Matt, you've seen this. We deal with people, on the street as police officers. We can tell who was raised with no boundaries as kids, right? Because as adults, they're getting in trouble, and we're arresting them constantly over and over again. So, I used to work with a veteran officer. Uh, he's one of those guys. He can say just about anything and not get into trouble, right? We all know that kind of person. Well, one day he was investigating a case where a 15-year-old kid was just acting out of hand, and we were always going to this house, and the mom was yelling at the officer, like, "Why can't you fix this? What is the problem?" And he goes, "Ma'am, I can't fix in 15 minutes what it took you 15 years to screw up." Right? He actually said that to her. Right or wrong or whatever, but it's true. It's a very good point. You call us to fix the problem, but for the last 15 years, what have you been doing? Right? So sadly, we see that. So yeah, I totally get it.
Well, kids need
There- the end results of your children, it comes from the parents in the first place. Are you actually parenting? I always say any couple can have a child. Now, whether or not they should have a child, that's a whole different category. This is the subject matter that we could discuss, because there are some people that I simply think should be sterilized. I could care less how much they fornicate. I could care less. Don't produce any offspring, because let the stupid seed end with you. And I actually have said that to people, and I go, "I can't believe you're saying this to me." I go, "Why? Because I'm honest. You may and I say this all the time, you may or may not like me, but rest assured, what comes out of my mouth is exactly how I feel, and it will be a truthful statement, because if I tell one lie, I might have to tell another 3 or 4 to cover up the first one. I'm not that sharp. I got too much going on. I'm either gonna hurt your feelings or and be blunt with you, but rest assured, it's not gonna slow me down at all. My life goes on. I live out of a planner. I'm probably busier now than I was before you guys ever first met me, because
Yeah.
they're like going, they need more people to be blunt with people. I'm not so much at this touchy feely, boo hoo hoo, your feelings. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm even cracking up myself here now. But no, I get it. But it's true. I'm not trying to be mean, or again, in the professional world, what's known as I'm being the heel, the bad guy. No, I'm just I always kind of speak kind of blunt and to the point, because I'm not gonna beat around the bush. So maybe someone needs to talk to you a little bit more sternly, or directly. Maybe they've been trying to fluff things just a little bit too much. Their voice like going, no, I want to prepare you for the harsh world. It's not a nice world out there. And people, if they think you're vulnerable, they'll take advantage of your vulnerability.
Yep. Well, and I just had a conversation with the chief the other day talking about, they're the tough love. So you guys as cops have this, and I know, Chris, you have stories about this, but a lot of the troubled people out there did not have structured discipline. They didn't have consequences. They didn't have a fatherly figure or a masculine figure or a good role model. And so they're doing all of these things that get them in trouble. And the weird dichotomy of it is that when you do encounter an officer that is stern, no bullshit, tells you, "Hey, you need to knock it off, get your head out of your ass and get your shit together, and get back on the straight and narrow." What happens is, even though it's a bad guy or a criminal, they actually turn around and respect that officer that much more. So we do need more just blunt honesty. Yeah.
If you study masculine, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I could say you started off that one portion because you said you want to have this tough male role model kind of in your life. I go, but it's also a two-way street. I'll regale you in another story there that here I am. Again, I'm thinking these are my teenage years. I'm coming in from outside and feeding the animals and stuff like that. And I'm bitching and griping. I'm sitting down by the counter area there and I'm bitching and griping to my mother. My mother is standing there at the counter. Again, I have 7 other siblings. I'm second on the totem pole. There's 5 males. You throw my father in there, and all these, you got each male is 6 foot or better, 200 pounds or better. When I would bring people back from high school or from college that would come over to like a dinner or lunch or something like that, my mother's putting out platters of potatoes, platters of meat, stuff like this. And they're like, holy smokes, what's the occasion? I go, lunch. It's dinner. Because I mean, we ate. I mean, we worked hard and we ate well. But getting back to the story, my mother's got this. She's got these butcher knives that she inherited from my grandparents. That I mean, they did all their own slaughtering and stuff like that on the farm. And so she inherited some of these big, and she's got this like looks like a big old machete, and she's sliced away stuff. And I'm bitching and griping and most of it that, and she never misses a beat. She says, "Cut, cut, cut," and she reached straight on over and flat with the flat side of the blade, slaps me right on the forearm, and I about to it. I go, "Mom, you could have," and she goes, and she got the knife. She looks at me. She goes, "Yeah, I could have, but I didn't. Now, did I?" She goes, she said, "Now, get your head out of your ass. Get back to work." Am I going, "Whoa, mom?"
Good job, mom.
And again, that's where we're getting. But see, role models are role models, no matter what. Yeah, again, we just live in a soft society. I I've walked into my own living room just to see all these teenagers sitting on the couches, and all their heads are down, looking at this device,
Yep.
and one will giggle. And then but you see, all the thumbs are doing this. I don't even, where is that class that both thumbs can go like this? I mean, I don't know where this typing
Uh,
class came from. I always tell people in high school, I took an actual typing class. There's 2 types of typewriters, the Pike and the Elite, 10 keys versus 12 keys. I had to learn the home run and all that. And even when I look at my laptop now, this is a typewriter keyboard is what I'm operating with. So again, it's got a few more gadgetries there onto it there to go with it, but it's like going, it's still the home row that you're working with. And there'll be some young people that might have the attention span of a gnat that might catch a little bit of a glimpse of something like this, and like going, what are they talking? What are those old people talking about? Because that they'll say that especially about me because of the gray hair. So
Yeah. Matt, what were you gonna say?
There's important topics here. The father hunger or father wound. Only about 16 to 18% of men can say they either had or have a meaningful or positive relationship with their father. And actually, a lot of cops have a high ACE score, adverse childhood experiences. So, but there's also research that it takes one male mentor to pour into a child to change their life. But then if you look at school teachers and college professors right now, most of them are females. So we really do have a lack of positive male mentors and elders and not enough dads showing up doing their job.
yeah, like to the Matt. Yeah, I actually have an education degree. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I got a teaching degree from Arizona State University, but it's all in the industrial arts. So you can think of Dan Severn as your shop teacher, but I'm your shop teacher that still has all of their appendages because usually that shop teacher will be like, "Watch out for the old table saw out there," because they're always missing a digit or two. But but that was all part of working with your hands, being on the farm, because we never owned anything new. My father was just good at reviving antiques. And then we even made, we would go to different auctions all the time, and we're buying things for pennies on the dollar. But it would, yeah, we would drive by other farmhouses that they've got a tractor that it's an antique to them, and they just painted it on up, and it's just sitting out in their front yard as like a yard ornament. And we're like, "Oh, dang, that looks way better than the tractor that we're using right now." But you just again, you just there's just such a big difference between, say, I'll say from a farm-grown kid and a city kid. The way that they eat, the way that they play, the interactions and stuff like that, you can just see genetically how that farm the farm kids they fill out more because there's a physical responsibility. I mean, one of the things that I thought that was the most enjoyable part, I love baling hay because it was physically demanding because you're walking along because the baler all it's doing is spitting bales out, but it's not spitting bales up on your wagon and stuff like that. We didn't have that kind of a setup. So you basically was be spitting all the bales out onto the ground as we did one thing. So now we go along with the tractor and the wagon, and now we're throwing the bales hay up onto the wagon, and you got to have one person on the wagon that's stacking things on up. But once you're done, you're going back over the barn, and now you got to be able to heave them up. So you're like doing shot puts and the whole 9 yard type of actions of getting. And the worst job was if you had to be up in the hay loft because if it's a hot summer day, you're sweating like a madman up in that loft, and now you got all this hay chafe that's sticking to your body. You're itching here and itching there, and it's it's a psychological and physical warfare type of a job.
So, and I'm here, so I relate because I grew up in the country. I grew up in the mountains and farm, and I would go, we had acreage, and I didn't have to do all of that, but I would go to my friends and help them and whatnot. Chris is a city slicker, born and raised. And so I'm
Mm,
like, well, oh no, you
mm.
okay? Wait. Well, yeah, you did work. So okay, hold on. I'll give it back. I'll take it back. But I was gonna go say that in my little Arizona backyard that I have, like I have a garden, and I really love that aspect of it. And I'm always like, a couple $100, and 2 years later, I get a tomato or whatever. He's like, Safeway's like around the corner, right? Chris, yes, you did work. You did. You can take your claim. What were
No, you call me a city slicker, but much like you, Dan, not on the farm, but we did grow cotton and corn and wheat in Arizona, because the town that I grew up in was a major agricultural uh, area, and so when I was in fourth, fifth grade, uh, I would have to get up sometimes at 1 o'clock in the morning because the water coming in from SRP came in at specific hours, and you can't control when it comes in. So when it's coming in, we have to open all the gates in the irrigation ditches and divert the water to these fields, and then we have to irrigate the fields to grow the cotton or the corn, and then I'd go back home after we've done that, go back home, sleep, get up, go to school, right? I'm in, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and that's how I was as a young kid. That was just normal. Like I thought every kid did that, but every kid didn't do that. And then I got into my teen years, and then I got into quite a bit of trouble. So I kind of diverted from there. But yeah, I hear you. Waking up odd hours of the night, day. That one year in 1989, I think it was here in Arizona, we reached like 122, 123 degrees outside. And I remember me and my three younger brothers, we were out irrigating in the middle of the afternoon, and we were throwing up from heat exhaustion because
No,
we were out there, right? So we ended up going home, immediately because otherwise we're going to die out there. But we ended up getting like 44-ounce thirst busters, and I grew up. We didn't have a lot of money, but we each got a thirst buster on the way home, and that was like the best day for me because I'm like, whoa,
big deal.
I get a whole 44 ounce by myself. Like, oh, sweet. Yes, we almost died, but at least I got my 44 ounce
Yep.
of Coke or whatever I was drinking back then. But anyway, so I'm not a
Mm,
city slicker, Tammy.
You're right.
So
I take it back. Yes, you have your
well, again, coming to Arizona in '76, um, it was literally it was the first time I ever saw cotton fields was in Arizona. I hadn't traveled down. You usually think that as a southern type of a
Yeah.
product that's being produced. So it really surprised me because out in Mesa, Arizona, the subdivision that I was living in, it was shocking that a couple of our runs was right along the canal. And I get a huge cotton field right there, and again that's where like the first time I ever went out to a cotton field, I actually had to pluck a couple of the things out, the sippy seeders, and send them back home. Thinking, gosh, I sent it back to my siblings that were back home, and to my parents. It's just with the era that emails stuff like that. Just I sent a letter with a couple
Yeah.
swabs of cotton into it to say, look, mom, dad, and brothers and sisters that were still back at home. I made it to my very first cotton field, and I didn't have to do it in a state like Georgia or Mississippi. It's right here in the state of Arizona.
Mhm.
Oh, it's crazy
Oh,
how much farmland is here. That's awesome. So, talking about the mindset and then going into the physical stuff. You guys are all super physically fit. I know you guys are super into watching UFC and MMA. And where is your guys' mindset when you guys are working out, and what kind of guidance can we give to the audience, especially the younger generation that they're going home and playing video games to cope with their problems, or going out to the bar drinking, or going home and drinking. They don't have some of the mental toughness that our older generations grew up with. So what kind of guidance can we give these younger
I,
kids?
I'll jump in here first because I'm gonna start right from my high school years. I had three different families. Athletically speaking, in the fall I had my football family. In the wintertime, I had my wrestling family. And then in the springtime, I had my track and field family. But the track coach, I had to deal with the track coach, knowing that I'm out for the track team, but if there happens to be a Saturday track meet and there's a Saturday wrestling meet, this again had nothing to do with high school. It was still high school age stuff, but we do what's known as folk style wrestling in our high school. But then and usually in the spring and summer and part of fall, there will be like freestyle and Greco-Roman, two international styles that will be competed in the upcoming Summer Olympic Games. So I was already kind of getting invested because I'm looking at an investment of my time because I'm looking to get a full scholarship. Asking mom or dad for money to go to college never entered my mind because mom and dad are feeding and clothing 8 kids. I went to the Salvation Army. I went to the Goodwill with my mom and dad. Again, didn't think we were poor, nothing like that. I'm there on the ground. I'm like a kid in the candy stores, like going, oh gosh, I can get myself some tennis shoes here. I can get myself some pants here. Something. It's all new to me, and you learn real quickly about hand me downs. Because whatever older brother wore, next brother wears, and stuff like that, because unless it's too worn out, then it finally gets thrown away. They're hand-me-downs. So you learn that real quick. I don't think I had my own bed until maybe I was I don't know, a freshman or sophomore in high school. I was sharing a bed with my older brother at that point. And people like, oh, that sounds good. No, it, we finally got bunk beds at that point. I'm still sharing a room with them. And it didn't make a difference when I finally went to college. When I went to college, I had a room to myself my senior year because older brother had gone on, other siblings they're doubled up into their rooms. And but by the time I go to college, guess what? Who my roommate is again? My older brother.
And I mean, great story. And I grew up differently too in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, where if you want to go to college, you're going to do it through football. So, I mean, that's how I got hooked on working out. But these days, even cops and active duty military have a high rate of obesity, and technology is a real problem. The smartphones, the social media, the video games, TV, internet. So I don't know what the answer is, but there's a lot less people being outdoors and training for sports. as much as it was maybe in the older generation. So I don't have the
America,
solution.
yeah, just to jump right on that there, man. America and Americans have a very high obesity rate. Again, I through my amateur wrestling, I should say through more my international wrestling, freestyle Greco, I've been able to travel to a lot of other countries. It's because of electronics. Americans are very sedentary. We long hours of eating of sitting, but then not really good nutrition there as well. When you go to a lot of other countries, they walk everywhere or they bicycle everywhere. They have mass transit type of tram systems and stuff like that that's in place. I noticed that, and I noticed how much leaner the people were. And it's like, I knew there was something wrong with nutrition at a very young age, but then I started seeing all the high fructose and corn, and going through high school and college, and they're showing you the nutrition pyramid that just this past year got turned upside down.
Mm.
So, who really is at fault for making America obese in the first place? Is it our corporations who are trying to make these high? They want you to eat the Captain Crunch with crunch berries. They want you sugar smack cereal, stuff like that. You got these heavily sugared and processed type of foods that they serve to you. And they knowingly were doing it, and they still do it. Now they're trying to pawn off stuff that's health food that might have 5% or less of some kind of nutritional quality to it, but it's not. When you go when I go to other countries, it's phenomenal to see how much leaner the people are, how much healthier they are, but then also like the the first, I'll say, half a dozen times going just to the country of Japan, it was mind-boggling to me because I'm thinking, wow, how clean this country is. There's no graffiti on buses, on trains. There's even in the more poorer type of areas. You got a woman that has got she got basically a big stick with all these finer sticks. It's like a poor area, but she's out there sweeping. She's got pride in what she's doing. But the only other thing that I noticed, they had outdoor vending machines, including outdoor beer vending machines. How 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 well would a outdoor beer vending machine do, Chris, in the United States?
No, the first night it'll get broken into. Like, it's not gonna last.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, yeah, that's one of the mind-boggling things that to see something. And it again, I'm going back 30 years ago
Mhm.
that I saw this kind of stuff. So
Well, I mean,
the
you
world continues to change, and but again, I like the evolution because all four of us were in different parts of the country here now, and yet we're able to communicate. So there are some great benefits to what this does. You got, as I tell people, you got the world at your fingertips. If you and it's at your fingertips for both good and evil. It's all depends upon you and how strong are you.
Mhm.
Well, and going back to what you said before, too, at the very beginning of it's about who you surround yourself with. So
Big
even
time.
though we're not surrounding ourselves necessarily with people in person as much these days, what you surround yourself with on social media, your algorithm and all of that, if it's negative or if it's one-sided, and we won't get into the politics, but whatever side you're being fed, switch it up. Go look at something else, and if it's not bringing you joy, if it's stressing you out, if you're getting emotionally reactive or emotionally hijacked, I can go into all of the psyop not conspiracies because it's not conspiracies. We know that now, but you're being controlled. You're being intentionally manipulated with your phone. So change what you're surrounding yourself with, who you're surrounding yourself with. Go and follow strong minded, level headed, look at it from both sides of the spectrum type of people. And you'll see that your quality of life already instantly improves just by doing that.
Yeah. Okay, just to play off that same note there, because I do several Facebook posts a day. And now I actually have a couple people that have come on board there with me to where they know the theme of what I'm looking for, and they're way better with AI than what I am. I typically give them the thumbs up onto it, and they're always looking for it. Then other stuff that now you can keep uploading more and more things to the cloud, so more and more little snippets here or there that come out. Of things that I've done in the past there as well. So again, I look at that. You gotta you gotta be careful in this world because it's kind of like a moment of a moment of indiscretion, a lifetime on the internet.
Mhm.
So that, and that's where I'm glad that this device wasn't around because I did a few of my own little shenanigans probably in my youth, but it's like going, yeah, thank God nobody. Hey, Dad, you are so let me see that again, and no, 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 no. So again, the world has changed, and is it for the better or for the worse? Just both, both.
It just is, but having that mental strength. So to be
Well, yeah,
one of the
what I think, well, okay, when I talk about having these different families, like, I said that during that my football days, and I love the sport of football way more than I love the sport of wrestling. Every 30 seconds, crash, bang, boom. I never left the field. It was like a one-man destruction. I loved it. I've had, I would destroy my shoulder pads. I'd have to be peeling off one set of shoulder pads. Had to take it off one of the other guys put on. I split my helmet to where like, I had to take my helmet off. Had to take on I like a kamikaze pilot. Loved it. I actually had a couple college offers to go play ball, but as a team, we lost games because somebody on my team would miss a block, would miss a tackle. I was again, it's going to come across as being very braggadocious there, but the coach allowed me to be this wild man rover terror. I would actually would run up there and go, I'm taking your spot. Go back to whatever position. I go from being a linebacker to going over to a nose guard to going over to a defensive end because I saw an opportunity to wreak havoc, and I loved it. And again, 'cause I had college offers stuff like that, but I chose the sport of wrestling because the definition of wrestling, it's a team sport based upon individual performances. The team can lose, and I can continue to go on. I I like those odds, and it even because we're talking more about this mindset. Because each year I grew stronger. Because my first year I was nothing in wrestling whatsoever. I was just a squid, just trying to make the team. The my wrestling coach, the high school wrestling coach, was also a government teacher. So one day when I'm turning in the paper, I see this stack of magazines called Amateur Wrestling News. I had never seen this magazine before, and he's got a stack of them on there. I'm like, Coach, do you care if I look through a few of these magazines? He goes, yeah, no problem. Just make sure they end up back on my desk. No problem. So that's when my world opened up to me because I started reading about this sport, that there's nutritional programs of how to lose weight properly. There's this mental toughness aspect of the sport. There's strength training programs for wrestlers. So I started like delve on myself, but then I came across this thing about setting your goals. I had never set a goal before, so it's like my very first goal I ever set in the sport of amateur wrestling was I wanted to be the very first freshman ever to make the varsity team. No one had done it at that point in time. Again, I'm a lowly freshman. So on the day that we're doing challenge matches, we're challenging for an upcoming meet. I weigh about 155 pounds. I challenge at the 155 pounds. Now, when you're a lowly freshman and you go against a sophomore, junior, or senior, there's 1, 2, or 3 additional years of physical maturity, but then also knowledge and skill levels. They've already been in combat for a little bit there. I'm just a newbie on all this. So I challenge the first weight bracket, I lose. I challenge up to the next weight bracket. I lose even more by more. I'm getting each bracket I move up, I'm getting my hind end handed to me worse and worse to like the last person to challenge is the heavyweight. And my coach probably should have never allowed the match to happen. But he saw this kind of maybe boneheadedness I had. He allowed the match to take place. And somehow I stepped on the foot of the heavyweight. He tripped and fell down. I fell down on top of him. I pinned him and I won. So I make varsity. And I mean, like Fukushi, and I can remember my very first varsity match ever. As they come up my weight class, and we're at this tournament, and I'm getting ready to go onto the mat right there. But do I know what I'm doing? No. I saw all these other wrestlers kind of bounce up and down like a little, I represent like a little jumpy being here right now, and because I just like, well, they're doing it, maybe I should be doing it too. So I'm just bopping around like this, and the referee is out on the mat, and my opponent is out on the mat. My opponent is about 6'6", weighs about 3 1/4. Because their heavyweight was unlimited at that time period. There was no weight restrictions. You had to weigh a minimum of 175 pounds. But at this time period, you could weigh in fully dressed. So I would weigh in fully dressed, shoes on, coat on, cans of pop in all of my pockets, so that I weighed just over 175 pounds. So my very first match, I'm wearing the 155-pound uniform. Referee looks right at my coach. Coach, where's your athlete? I'm doing this little bebopping up and down thing. My coach has got his clipboard on his chest, his arms crossed just like this. He didn't look at me. He just points like this. Referee looks from my coach, looks over to me, looks back at my coach and goes, "Are you sure, coach?" And my coach just goes, "There was no, and a boy, go get him, slap on, and nothing." It was the sheep being led to the wolves. The match lasted probably all of 20 to 30 seconds because as soon as the referee blew the whistle, the monster came over. He crumpled me, and he actually had to probably turn around just to basically pin me. So I always tell people, I did not set the world on fire out of the blocks, but I kept coming back again and again. And each time I got a little bit better to where I would have farmers coming out of the bleachers at these tournament weekends, and they'd come out, they'd slap me on the back. They're like, "Son, you're the funniest thing out there." They go, "You're so small compared to the little behemoths." They go, "You look like a pimple on an elephant's ass." I mean, they say stuff like that, and they're just cracking on up. I'm thinking, I'm, but okay, but fast forward into the season. Conference championship is taking place. It all boils down to the final match of the night, the heavyweight match. If I walk out on this mat and if I get pinned, Montrose Hill McCloy High School loses. I can take the biggest ass whooping of my life. It doesn't matter, but don't get pinned because that 6 points is what's going to put them over. And they can't get 6 points any other way. I went out there and I took 6 minutes. I took the worst ass whooping of my life. I counted those lights dozens and dozens of times over. It was such a lopsided score. It's like something like 25 or 27 to 3 or 4. The only reason I got 3 or 4 points is because the heavyweight let me go so he could hit me with another vicious headlock or lateral drop because he was trying so desperately to get the pin. And each time I'm on my back, I'm like, somehow I gotta breathe. I gotta get this big old behemoth off me and stuff like that. And when the match was done, the buzzer rings, all my wrestlers run out because I wasn't pinned. Lopsided score, the other guy wins, stuff like that. I mean the teams are all I feel like a rag doll because they're picking me up, and I'm literally I am broken. I'm broken, and then as they're all cheering and stuff like this, I kind of just I got away and I went around the side of the bleachers and I cried because I was broken. But I at the same token, I going, you guys are cheering now. I go, I will be back, and I will be better and better then, I mean, now the flip side is with these progressive season, I didn't just put a season. I would get, you know, during during a normal season, you could get about 40 matches or more. During the summertime, I would pick up another 100 matches. And even though I got I got beat a lot in the beginning, I always equated things to in life. There's the hammer, and then there's the anvil. And that's the nail that come up. You can be in life, you could become that hammer, or you're gonna be the anvil. To the point that I got to be to where now I'm becoming more and more of I'm winning matches, I'm pinning people. I've become a very vicious pinner to where now I have people leaving my weight class because I'm not gonna just beat you. I'm gonna pin you because if I just win by points in the back of their mind, they're thinking, "Well, you only beat me by a couple points." If I just work on my cardiovascular a little bit more, if I work on my technique a little, maybe I can come back and I can beat them. But when someone physically mauls you and then against your will pins you, they have stolen your soul to where I walked into a I got I went to a national tournament, and again, I said I had this reputation to where I would always wait till the weigh-ins were almost over, and then I would walk in and step out. So I look at the bracket sheet. There's 7 other people. I weigh in for my weight class. There's 8 of us, even numbers. I asked the Perry's coach, good guy, their referee, just put me at the top. I don't want any buys because you're at the bottom. Typically, that's where the buys start. I go, I want to buy. I want all matches. I go back up into my hotel room because it's like it'll be a couple hours before the tournament starts. So tournament's about to start. I come back on down, got my duffel bag. Now I'm going to go over to the bracket sheet to find out am I going to put on a red singlet or blue singlet because that's how they identified the 2 different athletes because one wore one color, so it's easy to call points for stuff. And all 7 other young men withdrew. I won a national title and never stepped out on the mat. So, I mean, that's where I've done a lot of incredible things, but it's more for the longevity that I've been doing things. Because when you look at what I started doing in 1975 and 1976, because I went 2 years in a row undefeated. Again, but each year I had to I raised my bar. In my junior year, I pinned everybody but one person. So my senior year, now as I go on, I must pin everybody. I have to raise the bar. So again, whole season go. So senior year, I pin everyone. Now I'm getting ready to walk out into my final state championship match. And the year before, I pinned my opponent in just over 1 minute. First period, 1 minute. Now my pressure is I must win. I must pin. I must do it all under 1 minute. That's the pressure I put on myself. My opponent didn't have a clue of the tsunami that was about to hit him. I walked off that mat 48 seconds later. I achieved my goal, but there are so many people that they don't know how to set a goal. they'll write it down as wishful thinking. I want to do this. I want to do that. You can actually do that, but now you got to work on the steps to get there. What are you going to do in your off season? What are you going to do on your free time? Am I going to be playing video games? Am I going to be goofing off with a bunch of goofballs? Or am I going to be? There's so many times I spent hours in a weightlifting room because I had to get stronger in different areas. I had to go and drill additional types of drills. And again, I always said, but I also repeated this cycle, not just for myself, but I have 5 children. And my oldest son, I wanted them to choose their sports, but they had to be involved in sports. I didn't want them to be idle, couch potatoes. No couch potatoes. So my girls, they got involved volleyball, basketball, that kind of sports. But my first son was a basketball player, and that just kind of like almost made me want to start pulling my hair out of my because I didn't know how to. I bought all the gear, for the outdoor hoops and the balls and put them through all the kinds of drills. But you know, I'm the epitome of a white man can't jump. Okay, so it's. You know. But I did have one son that followed in my footsteps, and he became a 2-time state champion, and he had to sacrifice some things along the way, and it was but he had to spend a couple mornings before he ever got ready to go to school. He had to spend about 45 minutes with dad out in his training facility training. And then I volunteered to be one of the volunteer coaches for the wrestling program. And the coach saw what I was doing during the course of the practice, but then how I brought in other men, former wrestlers, because my son already had man strength. I need to bring in other men that were formerly wrestlers. The cardiovascular might not have been there, but they're good for at least a couple minutes, and then I pull one out, and then I'd send the next one on in, and but I would tell him, okay, my son he's a sucker for this, or he's a sucker for that. Hit him with this, but then after you hit him with them, show him the defense, because I couldn't do that because I'm dad.
Yeah, that's
It's kind of like, you got, you know, I don't care how he gets the message. Even if he heard the message from the burning bush itself, he got the message finally. So I just had to use other people for instruments. So again, I know I'm going off into different tangents, but there's you are a product of what you surround yourself with. You are a product of what your goals are, your aspirations are. I lived by my junior year, I was living out of a planner. It was very simple what I was doing. I just, what summer tournaments do I want to go to? Which ones are going to get me more national recognition? Because how am I going to get a full scholarship?
Well, you dropped a whole lot, but I want to backpedal because you said something that you didn't, it's just in you of how you think, but you touched on something that I take everything as a sign. I look for coincidences and synchronicities and whatnot. And I got choked up for a second. I'm going to do it again because you talked about the hammer and the anvil.
Yeah.
So Chris's best friend who passed away from cancer 2 years ago now. Um, so they are old school UFC, MMA, all the things. I mean, the group we have here, Chris, they're silently fangirling over you. I'm just gonna call you guys out on that. They are fans of you. But Chris and his friend Mike Olson they were so into all of it. They'd also were into luchador wrestling, and they would get dressed up as luchadors and go to the matches. And Chris was the hammer and Mike was the anvil. So when you said that, to me, it just says that Mike is with us in spirit because he was also a huge fan of you. So you didn't even know that wasn't your intention, but that's where my choke up got. So thank you for that.
Dan, I used to watch you in UFC, right? You are like one of the godfathers, of MMA, right? With UFC. But then I also, because I'm a big WWF fan, WWE later on, and you were part of the Attitude Era, right?
Yes.
And so completely, I think I would assume it's very different than UFC, than you wrestling in college, because you're around.
Yes. Yeah.
So How did you prevent, like, how did you not fall? Because I've watched podcasts with some of these former wrestlers where they got into drugs, they got into all kinds of stuff, and they're in really bad shape today, and some of them are not with us anymore. What was there temptation there? How did you not, stray away from who Dan Severn is in that
There
atmosphere?
was Chris, there was huge temptations there. It's I remember the first time that I walked into the locker room. I got there early. And so as I got there early, it's like I had my duffel bag there with me. I traveled with my laptop. Um, I I got the very first time I didn't have my laptop there with me. I just had my duffel bag. I go in. Yeah, the WWF at the time. Well, it was just so impressive to me because of how, as a business, they would show up with these 4 or 5 semi tractor trailer trucks, and they would have all these cable lines running this way and that way. And as you enter through the first set of doors to enter whatever building or arena that you're using, all you had to do was either look to your left or right, and you would see all these pieces of paper that they just to be just taped up on the wall, and just say, "Mitch's office this way, locker room this way, cafeteria that way." And then as you get down towards the end of the one hall, then they're like, "Locker rooms are this way, cafeteria is that way." I mean, it was so well laid out. It just bogged my. So I'm in the locker room, and I'm there early. So what? I just simply always know rest. There was a theme there because even during my high school era, I saw other male athletes that they because the sport of wrestling was nothing but males, and now you've got female and male competitors. So back then it was and I could always tell that, okay, I see the athlete that's off with the girl. I go, his mind is not on what's taking place. He's losing his thought. He's on his feet. He's over there chit chat and stuff like that. No, me, I'm resting. It's like I'm the calm before the storm. And even when I finally, again, I always have like one of the lighter weights, knowing that they'll wrestle beforehand. I go in case, in case that there's something to call me over to Matt, I might be over there still sleeping. But I'm not that I'm sleeping. I'm resting. I'm trying to conserve my energy. But then as I'm getting up over there, as I'm walking towards the mat, they see me slapping my body. I'm slapping my face. Stuff that I even did in the WWF. They were blown away, like, on my first stuff when I come out there with this gray sweaty shirt. It looks like I just got done, and I'm thinking all I'm doing is, like, taking some water, throwing water in my hair. I'm throwing some water into my back, my front, stuff like that, to where it looks like I always did some type of a pre-workout before going out there because I want my body work on it, but I would throw a little bit more water to it. It looks like I just went through one heck of a warm-up. But it's all part of that ambiance. But then I'm a great mixture of both my parents. I have my father's dashingly intimidating good looks. I mean, my father struck fear just walking into the room, and he never said nothing. And then there's my mother who could fly by the seat of her pants with improvisation. How those two ever got together, I have no idea, but I am both of them because I have my father's intimidating look, and again, I could fly by the seat of my pants in that. So, but that's again, in that, get back to your thing. Different athletes are coming in there, and literally they're opening up their duffel bags and they're pulling out all these different bottles of chemicals, uppers, downers, something that will get you up, something that will put you down. Oh, you got pain? We got this. We got that. Whether it's in pill form or injection form, they got it all. And again, different people, they got pharmacies. Could be pharmacy. And I'm laying watching this right there, and then they're see again. They know, like, Dan can, and they called it gear. Can Dan? Do you need any gear? I go. I'm good. I'm good. So I did not go. But the very first time I ever traveled, it was all kind of laid out for me that I went to WWF's travel coordinator. Okay, all the athletes are staying at this hotel. When the show is done, I go back to the hotel. Now, the moment you don't even get in the hotel lobby because there's fans, because the fans find out what hotel are they staying at. And so you got all these people that they want to get a picture with you. They want you to sign, autograph all these different items and stuff like that for them. And then you have what's known as ring rats. And then these are the clientele, whether they're females and or males. But they're ring rats that all they there's no strings attached. They just want to know that they banged one of these WWF stars. So after that very first time, I get because I I was allowed to set my travel. They allowed me to call in and do my travel. So I would fly in early and I would go to a high school or something like that, and I might conduct an amateur uh, wrestling clinic. Then I would head over, and then I would do my job for Vince McMahon and the WWF. And then when I'm done there, then I travel over to a sports bar, and I was doing an appearance at a sports bar. So my 24 hours is gone. I'm pulling down 3 paychecks,
Mm.
and they're all pulling down 1. But the bigger difference is they're all out partying now. 'Cause I no longer am staying at the same hotel. I drive by myself, I stay by myself and I have a laptop because 'cause I'm working on things. I'm making things happen all the time. I mean, if you saw even in the last 24 hours what I did, you guys would be blown away because the way I traveled down here to Tucson to see Don Fry. But Don Fry didn't know how early I got up the day before. I went to bed this morning at almost 5 a.m. this morning just to get right back up at 7:30. I've had 2.5 hours of sleep, period. And it's been a nonstop day. Now I'm still wired for sound right now, and we're going on 10:15 here now. I won't shut down again until I hear Don and them. They're still outside and out. I should say in his living room. I'll get out there and I'll kibitz with them on different things because it's like I want to try to be around Don Fry as much as I possibly can because he needs another strong male role model to talk to. So again, that's where well, I get he's a divorce type of a guy, and so he needs someone to kind of vent life to. But because of the crazy fighting style he had of playing rock'em sock'em robots, I've been to a number of hospitals to go and check on him, knowing as I'm walking out, this might be the last time I ever see him alive. I've seen him filleted open, tubes in, all kinds of pus and junk running out of him, and even I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face. But it's like, am I cutting him in a break? No. I'm like, well, you friggin' pussy. So you're here, you got Club Med waiting on you. You got room service. Come on in. I go, huh, you know, what a gig here right now. Cause he expects that out of me.
Mhm.
I'm not going to cut him a break here right now. So
I
again,
think so.
it just, you got to sometimes it's just like you got to play that role.
Well, you brought up Don Fry's fight with Takayama, right, earlier,
Yeah.
and Matt, you brought up that men or women can talk to each other, but men can't. At the same time, though, Don Fry and Takayama fought. I mean, yeah, you're right. That fight was amazing. But after the fight, what did they do? They became friends, right? They hugged. They
Yeah.
they had a mutual respect for each other. So men, we might not be able to talk to each other, but we can fight each other, and then after the fight, we can be BFS, right? We can be best friends, right? So Don Fry is actually teaching us something there, right? Because you know, right, we communicate different, and yes, it looked brutal and it looked like one of them was gonna die, and Takayama, I think his face was all messed up in that.
Yeah.
But afterwards was the beautiful thing, was they were their friends, and I saw something with Don Fry years later where Takayama was in the hospital, I think, and
Well,
Don
the long story about that was Takayama was also involved in professional wrestling because I talk about professional because a lot of people say, well, they'll say it's fake. I go, well, don't use the word fake. I go, there is a predetermined outcome, yes, because it's an entertainment product that they are actors, They are stunt men and stunt women. They're athletes. They're contortionists. And I go, Takayama was involved in a very simple move known as a sunset flip. It's stuff that I used to do. I even taught how to do it, correctly. But he was involved in a match where it went wrong. In the process of it going wrong, he was turned into a quadriplegic. He could talk, and that's about it. So, and I mean, I've actually, even over the last couple of years, I've had communication with them through the internet. So I've sent some messages and stuff like that to him. And I might, if I can remember, it won't happen tonight, but if I can remember in the morning, I'll send my message and to let him know that, Takiyan-san, just want you to know that I'm down here in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm here with one of your old nemesis down Friday. I mean, again, they're not nemesis, but, and I go, and he's driving me crazy because of this, or this, because I'll make something there to where, because he'll he has like a nurse's aide that helps him on everything, and the nurse aide, they're like, "Oh, something, Tunkian-san is very always so happy when he receives email from you." And again, if you can make someone's day, and that's where a lot of athletes don't understand how many eyes are upon you. But even as a father figure or another male role model, people don't understand how many eyes are on you. And that's where the public domain is. It's public domain. As I just stated before, that moment of indiscretion, a lifetime on the internet. But
Dan,
even one other thing, just to add that,
yeah,
Tommy, is that I pride myself in the fact that I'm lifetime chemical free. You find another professional wrestler or another cage fighter that can make that claim. You look at the world of bodybuilding, where they look like these Adonises. You know, it's chemicals. They're some of the most unhealthy people in the world. The diet that they have to go on to, but the steroids, the growth hormones. I mean, the list goes on. You don't see very many senior citizen bodybuilders. They perish at, but each profession, you look at a lot of interior linemen. A lot of interior linemen are gone in the late 50s and early 60s because of you don't find too many 300-pound men that can run a 40-yard dash in these incredible time frames. They're like a moving locomotive, but again, they got magic chemicals that are making them bigger, stronger, and faster. But what price do you pay ultimately? And a lot of it is quality of life. Because there's a little analogy that I don't that I love saying. It's like in the first half of your life, you will destroy your health while trying to acquire wealth. In the second half of life, you're willing to spend that wealth trying to reacquire your health. And in the end, you'll give it all away because you can't take it with you. And again, if somebody, I learned about that so many eons ago, towards like going, I've sacrificed so much family time that as I get older, I spend more time with my family because I want to have more memories. And I even, if I send off a birthday card to one of my children or something like that, even to my brothers and sisters, I always put some kind of like comical story from our childhood, or if I talk to one of my children, I regale them with you guys were nothing more than gym equipment when I was your father, because it worked. But I physically was active, play. They jump on my back. I'm doing the pony and I'm about good bucking around, stuff like this, or the wrestler. progress around, and then they're getting the better of me. But then as I start to turn the table out, as they start to scurry away, I'm like going, I grab them by the ankle, and I go, where are you gonna go? As I start to lift them on up by one hand, I go, where are you gonna go? Your dad's got you now, and I raise it up because I'm doing one-arm dumbbell raises. Oh, if I got to go too heavy, I got to use two. I go. You kids were weight equipment. You were having a time of your life with me, and I know I'm making memories there for you, but I'm kind of killing a couple birds with one stone.
Well, I think the audience for especially the first responders, that's really important because you get very small windows of time with your family and kids. So multitask, do that. Uh, Chris and I have a 65-pound bulldog that is my workout now. I tried to give him a bath yesterday, and that was a workout.
His name is Dutch, right? Dutch kind of reminds me of Don Fry. He's very gruff.
He kind of,
No.
I was thinking about that today. I was like, they kind of
Yeah,
look like.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it's
Uh,
go.
Well, and the other thing that you guys all just kind of emphasized is specifically for the men, whether it's law enforcement or just men in general, the friendships that you guys have. And with law enforcement, part of the problem is you have your buddies in your department and then somebody leaves the department. They move across the country and you don't have that friend anymore, or they retire and now you got somebody that's on the other side and you kind of lose connection with each other. So this is my shout out to all of the audience listening. Pause and send your friend a text. Check in. We always say check in. Reach out. Go if you're local, make the time to go for lunch or do something. Make the time for a guys hangout, go talk, whatever. It's okay to talk about your feelings from a female perspective. Talk about your feelings in whatever bro code you guys use for that, but talk about something. And then I wanted to ask you too, really quick, how much did having you are a coach, you've coached people, you mentor people, you've had coaches and mentors. How because we are law enforcement coaching, we're doing mental and emotional mindset coaching for first responders. So, how much of a impact do you feel that coaches make in somebody's life to make them even better?
Huge. I've been coaching literally since my freshman year in high school because I went to camps, wrestling camps. My my high school wrestling coach, as I said, was also the government teacher and the wrestling coach. But he stood about 5'5" and weighed probably 350 pounds. He was built like a butterball turkey. And again, I don't say that to be mean. I just say I need to give you that visual. He physically could not show you how to do moves, but he recognized talent in the rest of the room. And so it's like, okay, Mark, you got the best double leg. Show us how to set up the double leg takedown. Okay, Chris, you got the best fireman's carry. Show us what the fireman's carry. Okay, Severn, you went to camp this past summer. What'd you learn? I go, Coach, I learned this thing called cradles. Show us what a cradle is. And again, and when you first go out there and you're showing you may not know how to describe it all that well, but the more times that you teach it, the better you get with teaching. So again, it's repetition. That old analogy, repetition is the mother of all skill sets. The more times that you repeat something, you can ingrain yourself. It's like you can brainwash yourself just like you can brainwash people by repetition.
I
As
agree.
I said before, I talk to myself. I had to bring. I go, come on, Dad, you're not so tired. You could drive another. And it's like, oh, I'm so tired. I've been driving so much. Like, there's only so much caffeine I can put into me. Yeah.
Well, I love all of this conversation. I want to honor everybody's time. Matt, you've been quiet for a little bit. Did you want to? Did you want to throw
Well, you
anything?
know what I'd like to say is, Dan, thank you so much. What an honor to hear like recurring themes in your life. Family. You've circled back to what mom and dad meant to you and your siblings. You've talked about what it's like to be a father and so engaged with your kids. You've talked about how deeply you care about your friendships and how you pursue meaningful goals with passion and a lot of hard work. And so it's been an honor and it's beautiful. I've been around a ton of pro athletes, and not frequently are they talking about family and friendships and mentoring. And you've talked about other mentors in your life. So just a lot of solid lessons. So thank you.
But on that same note, Matt, I'm gonna be around a long time. One of my other goals that I have, I plan on living to be 125. Mm. Now, I probably should say the second part, but I will say it anyway because the men folk will understand this. I go, and then at 125, my life will be taken tragically and suddenly by a jealous husband. Okay, it's my little fantasy. Okay, she will have been a much younger woman. She would have been in her 90s. Okay, but I saw her putting on orthodontic stockings. I saw life. Again, I say it like that because life really is what you make it. If you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't make somebody else laugh, laughter is one of those greatest gifts. It's like chivalry is dead in a lot of places. I'm still that guy that likes to open a door for ladies and stuff like that. And then, like, they even look at you like, then because a lot of the older gals, they'll simply say, "Oh," they'll say, "I guess chivalry isn't dead now, is it?" I go, "Well, not to some of us old farts. We're still around."
Well, laughter is Chris and I's relationship. Like, we laugh most of the day. Most of the day is roasting each other, honestly, but we laugh all the time about everything. Even if we're fighting, we end up laughing about it. So, laughter is everything.
It is. I mean, it's one of the best. It's one of the best endomorphins you can give to your body. It's great. There's again, I got such good imagination. I could just think about something and just and start, I'll be in a quiet setting and I'll be the first person that bust out laughing. Yeah.
Same. Well, okay, so I do want to honor everybody's time. So in true fashion, what we always do is we go around, and if the audience only tunes into this last part with you as our guest, I don't think that's the case. But if they only tune into this last part, what piece of guidance or advice would you give to our audience? So Chris, I'll have you go, Matt, and then Dan, I'll have you go. Chris, go.
I would think the motivation to keep going, right? Because, I'm in law enforcement, but much like you, Dan, and just in your life, there's going to be some tough times out there, right? And there's going to be times where we want to quit. And if we keep going, yes, we'll eventually achieve that goal that we set. So, you know, those tough times, that's what builds character. That's what builds you. Those tough times is why I'm here coaching, right? Because I went through those dark times and I didn't quit. And when I say quit, I'm not just talking about, you know, quitting law enforcement, but in law enforcement, we have a high rate of suicide, right? So keep going and find that motivation. Surround yourself with good people that are going to help you continuously to go, right? So don't quit even when times are tough.
Whatever areas of life you want to improve or you have a passion about, look for mentors, elders, and just good role models that are further along the path and maybe living in a manner that you'd like to live and seek them out and spend some time with them.
Life is what you make of it. Make a plan, even if it's just taking out a piece of paper. Make some type of plan knowing that life is gonna throw you some curveballs, couple U-turns, couple dead ends. It's just life. But have a basic plan and knowing that when you hit this, you gotta make up a new plan. You can just talk about divorce in the United States alone. If a young couple gets married, I'd say again, I don't know what the exact figure. I'll say it's got a 50-50% chance of succeeding because I think most young people don't have any real survival skills of knowing what life is. We don't teach enough practical applications like of mathematics alone. We're teaching trigonometry, algebra, and I go, you might want to start teaching some basic math skills of, you know, you're you're in driver's school, you might be thinking about getting a car. Car's going to cost you this much. You have to put now if we start putting down interest rates of this, they'll understand that. Or if you want to want to buy a house, your down payment is going to be this much at an interest rate of this. If you put more mathematical problems to real life situations, you'd be surprised how much more they would understand mathematics. I had a brilliant high school teacher of mathematics. He was brilliant, but he did not know how to relate. I became a coach. I became a teacher because I wanted to emulate the good teachers. And I did a lot of teaching, I substitute and yeah, the movie Kindergarten Cop came out, and literally I ended up being a third grade. Start off with just I was always with a sub for a couple days to where I had to finish out the year with the third graders. And I had all the other people because they're like, "Oh, dude, you're just like Arnold Schwarzenegger here, in kindergarten cop."
Didn't you
They're like,
play a
"What?
cop in something too?
What's that?"
Didn't you play a cop in a movie or
Yeah,
show?
I've played on several different roles, but I've again, 'cause I just I typically people think I got that cop look, that military type look. I got the W right chin, I got the mustache, and I'm organized.
That's awesome. Well, and I 1000% agree with you with the math. I pulled my daughter this year. I'm homeschooling her. And, I struggled with math back in the day, and looking at her, I'm like, why are we teaching kids math like the boringest way possible? We need math in life, but yeah, exactly what you said, like correlate it so that it actually makes sense and is applicable for normal day-to-day life. So I echo you on that.
Again, we live in this plastic society. We have all these credit cards, plastic, and it's I go in all the time and I'll pull out cash. First off, when I pull out cash, most of the cashiers are like going, "What's that?"
Mhm.
They're so used to, you know, tap the screen with your card, tap the screen. I go, I'll get a. It might have been like a dollar 27, and I pull out a buck and two pennies, and they're like, "Oh," again, I give them some odd change because I don't want the pennies back. I just want the quarter or something like that, and then it's like their mind's going ding ding ding, ding, like it doesn't compute. And they don't know how to count change back.
Nope.
But because we live in this plastic world where you just tap and tap and tap, do you know how many financial funds you have on you now? It's easy to run up a credit card bill. And Chris, what is the interest rate on the back of that credit card say?
A lot.
Probably 25 to
29 to
30%.
39% depending on the card.
And I will look at whoever was holding up that credit card. I go, and I'll bet you don't have one single investment that's returning you 29 to 30%. All and you're throwing away 29% of your money. I go, when my wallet is empty, I'm broke. I'm not going to do this credit card thing there, even though my better half gets angry at me. She goes, "You got a corporation. Use the credit card. Use the credit card." I go, "I also have a receipt." I go, "I use my receipts as my write-offs and stuff like that." So I try to, again, we're not talking about relationships right now because we're always going to collide on those on a certain aspect. There's certain things that are fine, but then there's other stuff like going, can't we just agree to disagree upon other aspects here? You function the way that you like to function, and I function the way I like to function.
Yep.
But then she'll look at me and she'll say, "Yeah, but you're stupid." I go, "And what does that say about you that you married a stupid man?"
This sounds a lot like
You
our
were
conversation.
you were drinking too heavily at that point in time in life, were you? So, I get it, but you have to use humor, and then there's sometimes that I'm doing, these stupid macho machismo type of things in front of her, and she looks at me and goes, "You're so stupid." She goes, when are you gonna grow up?" I go, "Well, hopefully never." And even on the same note, I already laid the guy, and I know I'm going longer than I probably should, but I have 7 other siblings, as I said, and they all had real jobs. And ever since the 80, well, yeah, I guess I said ever since 1992, I went I relocated to Coldwater, Michigan for a job using my degree. And I had left Michigan State. Yeah, like this, talking about just payroll. When I was assistant as a coach at Arizona State University, I was making 3,200 a year. $3,200 a year. That was my salary. So I worked a full-time job at a weightlifting manufacturing company. In the first year of me working there, I was low man on a totem pole, which means I'm scrubbing down all the weight equipment to get all the grease and grime, stuff like that, 'cause, they came from the welders, and then it's gonna go to the spray paint shop, so they can be spray painted and then leave. Well, again, I've already been taking a couple years worth of, uh, programs in, manufacturing and things of that nature, because I always wanted to be able to build things and come from a farm background. You're always breathing new life into old antiques to begin with. So literally, I started to advise the owner of how to make his company more proficient because the raw materials are coming in over here. Your chop saws are over there, and what they call like this line of productivity where things come in, they get unloaded right here, and your chop saw should be right there. The welding booth should be right there. And he just couldn't believe how much more proficient. So literally in 1 year, I went from the lowest man on the totem pole to the owner's right-hand man, to the point that even as I'm delivering equipment, to various high schools, universities, or even the individuals' homes and stuff like that, I would see opportunities where they have other piece of equipment that they have a broken plate. And not a circular plate, but they have like a stack of plates, but there's one of the plates are broken, or they have a frayed cable that's about ready to snap or something like that. So I incorporated, every spring that a high school should have their weight equipment looked at because and during this time period, the universal squirt box machine was there. To where you had a lat pull down one side, you had a seated military press on the other side, you had a leg press that you could push the top rung and it pushed one weight, and then you push the bottom rung. So the squirt box and the guy couldn't believe how much money he was making, but he wasn't being very good about sharing in any of that wealth. And then on top of that, I befriended one of the workers who happened to be, his name was Roger Wynn. Wow, I got named out of that name in like forever. He was a paraplegic, but he was a welder. And so we started and one day when I basically I picked him up every now and then. And because the owner allowed me to I'm making a delivery as I'm heading back to Arizona State because I'm working at their up until a certain time frame, and then I'm usually making a delivery with the company's truck on my way to Arizona State, to where now all I do is simply just change out of my clothes. I put on my coaching clothes, and now I'm going in. I'm working out and I'm coaching athletes because not only am I coaching athletes, but I'm still an active competitor, trying to pursue things there as well. But it was, when I took Roger and I one day he was not out where he was supposed to be. I went to look for him. He said that he would be in the adaptive intramural, uh, training room. So I'd never been in it before, so I walked in there looking for him, and I couldn't believe how antique-ish or how dilapidated all this equipment was. And then as I, again, I'm just taking this all in visually. And as I get back out and I get, Roger loved me to death because he just knew that, okay, he was, a medium-sized man, basically. It goes the way that I could just scoop him out of his chair, set him in on the seat, then grab his wheelchair and just pop in the back. And he's like, "Hey, Danny," he goes, "My dad can't do that." He goes, but he goes, "You're way stronger." I go, and I just, it's just, you know, uh, thing because I'm a wrestler. Okay, I'm trying to, I'm at a heavier weight, stuff like that. But through the course of the conversation, I go, Roger, I go, if he was a welder, I go, you and I can build a better mousetrap for the handicapped people. And then on our free time, because the owner would take in all these old Universal machines as a trade-in for and upgrade these other pieces of equipment on top of being repaired. So we had a bunch of scrap parts that, some days when I had free time, Raj and I would be drafting, drawing this all up, and we created, well, the name became the Freedom Machine that an able-bodied person could use, but then you could wheel up to it in your wheelchair. So a paraplegic could wheel up to this up the thing, and it actually had things that would actually hold the wheel so as the chair would shoot back, but they could grab now a lap pull down bar, and they could pull on down, and they could use it like a lap pull down bar. They could use a pull, but you had to have on the lat pull down, you actually had to have a way in order to secure yourself so you didn't pull yourself out, or you could pull things into you, but it had a chest pad that would touch right there. So you're resting here, but you're pulling here, so you're still working your arms. So we had made this adaptive to where you got 4 different stations and you're using it. And even though maybe I'm a quadriplegic technically. I can't use my hands because my fingers won't work. But we came up with a Velcro strap that also actually had you'd have to have there would be one, let's say, assistant that could work with 4 different patients because we had 4 sides. So 4 different exercises could be worked on, but you only needed one staffer to make sure, okay, I need to do the lat pull down, but I can't use my hand because I got issues. But we had these wrist straps to hook on there, but it had an S hook, and we welded these circular like washers, but they're much heavier than a washer onto it to where now you could simply just hook in. And you could use your arms to do like a lat pull down. I could do uh, seated poles to myself. So we created this machine that it was incredible. And when the first demonstration came to work, I go as Roger and I go to this gymnasium. As we go in there, I go, Roger, when we pull in here, all I'm going to be is I'm going to be the delivery boy because I learned a lot about the what they refer to as the adaptive world. And in the adaptive world, paraplegics hate quadriplegics hate paraplegics because they lost 4 limbs of use versus 2 limbs. And I didn't understand this. Again, it's just a brand new world that's being opened up to me. But I just told myself when we get there, because I knew that the owner was interested because he is a paraplegic. I go, Roger, I can't go and show him how to use this machine because I'm an able-bodied man. He's going to be able to relate to you because you are in the same boat that he is right now. So I'm just nothing more than I'm the delivery guy. I set up, put it all together. Roger takes it through the thing. And the ironic part was the owner of the company had left for a 2-week vacation. And we're running because we know what orders have got to be shipped out and what's got to be dropped on off. And this machine was sold, but we took it, we uncrated it, loaded into the one of our delivery trucks, went over to this place and put on this demonstration. And then the owner walked out He goes, "You're not taking that machine back." He gave us a check for 2. This one and then the next one that you could bring over to him as well. So when the owner got back, and as soon as we got back, we put in the order that we started getting the second one all welded back up again. You know, it was already in production. And could the owner be mad at you for the fact that you sold one machine and you got another machine that is going to be going to the same place, and he still has got the other order to be filled? It's like going, he's like going, maybe I should go on more vacations. That's what he thought. So again, I apologize for that guy going off because I always tell people that it'd be hard to believe. One of my biggest fears was getting up in front of the class and speaking. I'm not a speech person, but if you put me up there for Q&A, oh, I will give you a very elaborate answer, and I will go into some type of a storytelling anecdote that reinforces, because I've lived enough of life that I've got a story for almost anything and everything. So that's where I would tell people that I've got a big corporation that they're looking forward to. He goes, "Can you help us to help our team get motivated?" I go, "Can I?" Sure, but I go, "I'm not going to get up there and go rah rah shish kebab. I will be talking to them same way I'm talking to you. If you guys ask the right questions, it's gonna trigger, because I go, it always depends on the question. Some questions that are asked time and time again, but then there's other ones that I like the new question that comes in, because it just makes me want to think about what, how would I do it, or how did I do it? Because like I said, I'm in the yeah, and I'm actually I'm going into the second half of life. At 67, you know, I got one last story, I promise. I had an artificial hip put in, little over almost 2 years ago, and I was hurting pretty bad, but I just kept limping around, and even when I got to the point that I know I've gotta have this done, I had to have an MRI done, and my doctor came back with one of his associates, and my doctor nudges him and goes, "Go ahead, ask him." And then the other doctor goes, he goes, "My associate here says that you walked in here today." I said, "Well, I didn't walk in. I kind of limped in here is what I did." He goes, "Based upon your MRI, with a score of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst, you're a 10 plus. And neither one of us have ever seen a 10 plus before." He goes, "You've got to be in pain, incredible pain." I go, "Well, I'm not exactly a happy camper." But I go, "Rest assured, I'm gonna limp right back out of here too, because I got stuff to do." And I go, that didn't stop me. Last week when I'm on my little unique island property there, and I'm pushing a wheelbarrow of bricks around, and I'm limping with each step, but I'm pushing a wheelbarrow of bricks around, and like what? I mean, but I go, it just I go, I'm in the business of usually inducing pain to others. Yeah, in the submission grappling world or the MMA world, I go, yeah, do I really like pain? No. I'm a pansy when it comes to that. So I shall shut up, because as I was able, I was to my storytelling, I was able to overcome my fear of speaking in front of people, because I had to take a class in my senior year and then once again in my freshman year of college, because of being thrusted in front of the microphone.
Well, I love all of that. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your time being here. You guys are super stoked on all of it. To the audience listening, thank you guys for being here. If you have any questions, you feel free to reach out, drop the comments. We'll make sure we get those questions over and try to get you the answers, all that good stuff. And thank you. And until next week.